Holidays can be stressful.
Oh, yeah,
And
especially if you're hosting.
Oh, my God. If you're hosting, you have so much to do. No, thanks. I'll gladly go to someone else's house for that. They can deal with that stress.
Hello.
And welcome back to the Pioneer Careers Podcast. My name is Kenny Anderson.
And I'm Natalia Hillen.
And we are on episode 8. It's crazy to think about that we're on episode 8, the last episode of the semester, our final recording of the semester. Kind of bittersweet because it's the end of the semester. And our dear Nick, executive producer, it's his final episode. Hello.
Aw.
No, not the hand.
Not the hand.
It's his final episode with us. He graduates this month, and good riddance. Just kidding. We're sad to see him go. He's done amazing work with us. So with it being finals week, what better topic to talk about than managing stress during finals week? So how have you been feeling lately? Are you stressed?
I am stressed. I would say a lot of Point Park students have finals week for like 3 weeks, and then the last week isn't like the most detrimental. Usually it's kind of spread out because you have projects and presentations. Obviously it depends on your major, but a lot of like School of Comm, I know like we have a couple weeks of like really like it's the nitty gritty. You got to get your stuff in, you got to get it done.
Yeah, especially like I feel the fall semester is always like that cram because you have the week before Thanksgiving, which I feel like professors try to get stuff in before that. And then you have 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, and then you have Christmas break. So it's like when students come back after Thanksgiving, I feel like there's no motivation. I feel like they don't want to do anything. Me as a worker here at Point Park, I feel the same. And I'm ready for Christmas break. See, my mind's already on Thanksgiving break. And I feel it's just like crunch time. But yeah, I know what you mean. There's some majors who have a traditional finals week right after the last week of classes or whatnot. And then there's some majors who have, like you said, it's spread out. Maybe that last week of classes they do finals because the professors are nice and they don't want to do finals week at all. But I know finals week can be very stressful for people, especially if they have a lot of exams. They haven't experienced it before. Freshmen, sophomore, or even seniors, Nick, who are about to graduate, they might be stressed during finals as well, just trying to get those last minute assignments in. But how have you kind of like, I guess, dealt with the stress of finals week? Because there can be good stressors and there can be bad stressors, because good stressors can really motivate you. But there may be those stressors that, I don't know, I don't want to call it like they paralyze you mentally, but you just kind of sit there and you're like, crap, I have a lot to do. So how do you kind of manage that?
I would say the hardest part for me is to get started with something. I know that we were talking about that one time. Once I get started and I'm focused, I'm 100% pretty much fine. Obviously, I'll sometimes procrastinate, go on my phone in between stuff, like if I'm studying and doing work.
Just kind of like a mental break,
But usually, as long as I get that started, like the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm usually fine. I would say taking time for yourself, like 30 minutes just to even take a break. Go for a walk if you're studying and you're stressed out. That will help so much with getting you back to that focus state, in my opinion. But
is there anything that you kind of like? I don't know. I know there's some people who like having stuff in the background when they're studying, or are you a person that needs complete silence? Like me, I could have lo-fi beats playing in the background on Spotify, or maybe just, I don't know, some video, maybe a TV show or whatever. Like I could have that and still study, but it can't be too loud. If it's too loud, then I can't focus. But what type of person are you? Are you a silent studier? You need some noise or a fan or something?
I definitely need complete silence if I'm studying, because I'll get distracted easily. So as long as there's nothing else going around that's distracting, I think like solely just focusing on the stuff to memorize is like the best thing for me.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the situation and the topic that I'm studying. If I'm like really interested in it, I could probably do it with music or without. But if it's something that maybe not that I'm not that interested in, I might need complete silence just so I could like focus on it and just be like, this is what I need to focus on, and just put my whole attention onto that. But as always, Article Man. I have two, but I think I'm just going to focus on the one because they have a really great slogan here, or like the title of it. It's called Manage Stress to Thrive. And I'm like, ooh, that's a great spin on it. I love the optimistic spin. And it's from health.cornell.edu. And they just kind of talk about stress. And I kind of mentioned it earlier that, they say not all stress is bad. Some stress can motivate us and help us focus on achieving our goals. But too much stress or stress carried too long can activate our fight or flight response, which is very true because if stress becomes overwhelming, then your mental state might just be like, oh my God, too much. And then you just become paralyzed, like mentally a little bit. And I've experienced that. I've experienced where I'm just like, oh, I have way too much going on. And I just sit there and I'm like, I'm just going to do something else. And then I'm not productive at all. And then you start to stress about not being productive. And it's just like a chain reaction of things. But they say, as a college student, hey, college students, listen, stress is unavoidable. It's a part of everyday life. It's just how you manage it. The goal isn't to try to get rid of all stress. Rather, the goal is to learn to respond well. This means balancing your daily stressors with activities and attitudes that replenish your physical, mental, and emotional energy lost to stress. And they give a graph. They talk about healthy tension, peak performance zone, imbalance, and breakdown. I'm not going to go into that, but if you want to look at this little graphic that they have, go to health.cornell.edu. Manage stress to thrive. But sometimes, I know, it's a crazy graphic. It reminds me of that. Remember that cat graphic we talked about?
Yes.
From Halloween. But I know sometimes, when can you tell? I'll ask you this, because this talks about what to do when your stress is too high or signs your stress is too high. For you, when do you start to notice that, you're becoming just too stressed and you just can't do anything? You're realizing it. What are some signs or symptoms that you get when
I
you're too
would
stressed?
say when I have sometimes when it's too overloaded of a schedule for me, because I get everything done when I need to. When I have a lot of homework and I have a lot going on that I have to be somewhere all the time, that's when I kind of get stressed, because I'm like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to get that done? But I always get it done with good quality. So that's why I've kind of learned throughout the years that once you kind of establish that routine, even though say an assignment's due and I'm stressed about it, I know it's going to get done. Yeah. Just from previous years of me being stressed about it. It's okay, I'll be fine.
You'll always come out on top.
I always will. It always ends up happening. Yeah. It always ends up being fine.
You persevere.
Yes.
For me, I would say some of my signs and symptoms are, sorry to my friends out there, but I become very irritable, and reflecting after the fact or after a situation, I notice that I may say some petty comments, and it has nothing to do with them. It's just in the moment that I'm so stressed with either work or personal stuff going on, whatever it may be. And looking back, I noticed I was like, ooh, I was kind of a bad friend, and I said some bad things, and I shouldn't have. So let me be accountable and take accountability and, apologize, whatever. And they kind of mentioned that here. Some emotional symptoms: irritability, your anxiety increases, feeling overwhelmed, like you mentioned, anger, sadness, loss of pleasure in things once enjoyed. I've experienced that so much, especially during the winter months. And I guess that's a sign of depression too. But it's, depression and anxiety and stress really ramp up during the holidays and during finals week. And just take care of yourself and don't be afraid to ask for help.
I agree. I think it's hard for people to ask for help, and I'm guilty of it.
I'm the same way. I grew up as an only child, so I want to say I'm independent. I'm an independent person, so I want to be able to figure it out on my own. And
that's how I am.
Asking for help in society is kind of viewed as a weakness, and it's not. So ask for help. It's not a weakness. It's okay to not be okay. So just don't be afraid to ask for help, and, speak out, talk to your friends, family, or even just reach out to someone on campus. Because here at the university, there's a university counseling center, and they are amazing. There might be a wait list, but once you get in, they're amazing. They'll help you out. And as a college student, it's free of charge. So
I need to hop on that.
I know, right?
I do. What am I doing?
So those were just the emotional symptoms, depression, hopelessness. Academic, cognitive symptoms: difficulty retaining information read or heard, unwanted or repetitive thoughts, poor concentration, disorganization, forgetfulness, deterioration in quality or quantity of work.
Oh, I'm guilty of disorganization.
Yeah.
That's one that's, especially my room, when I get really stressed, I don't have time to clean, because I like having my cleaning days on Sundays usually and get homework done.
Day, yeah.
But when I can't even do that and I can't fold the clothes that I did laundry, it all just backs up. So I'd say like disorganization, at least in my room, is definitely something that I have to work on. But at the same time, I end up cleaning it and getting it done eventually.
It feels so good.
It does feel great.
You don't want to look at my room right now because there's clothes everywhere.
Same.
So that's stressing me out.
Same.
And I'm like, I just need to do it. But then when I get home after work, I'm like,
I'm so tired. I get back so late after being gone from like early morning, so usually if I have a couple hours to spare on the weekend, I'll do it.
Especially with your schedule. You're just such a busy girl.
It's just a lot, especially because a lot of my online classes, all of that work is due Saturday. So for example, like if I'm sideline reporting the basketball games like Point Park, like I did last week, I went back and cranked out 3 hours of my homework so I like was gone all day still after a track meet. It's actually things that I have going on. I'm not even just making up excuses of why it's not clean, but I do want to be more organized because that does stress me out.
And sometimes life just happens and you can't control it. We talked about this all the time. Only control what you can control, and sometimes things are out of control and life situations just happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can kind of relate to that too because disorganization, and it's just, we talked about the cycle. It's that leads and piles onto it. No pun intended with the laundry. But difficulty retaining information read or heard. I have that same, I guess, difficulty when I'm stressed because then like you're stressed and then you're worrying about the stress. So then when you're trying to study, you're still worrying about the stress. But then you're not even retaining anything. You're like, wait, what did I just read or study or anything? Yeah. So I can relate to that. Physical symptoms, muscle tension, frequent illness, because once you're stress lowers your immune system. So I don't know how else to explain it, but it's biology. So you're more prone to become sick or anything because of that lowered immuno response, whatever word they use. Stomach aches, sleep disturbances experienced, fatigue, exhaustion, headaches, tension headaches. I've had some of those.
My gosh, those are
the
very
worst.
common one.
Vague aches and pains, appetite or weight changes, relatable, and heart palpitations.
Wow.
So,
those all hit home.
Yeah. So if you're experiencing any of those, you might be dealing with stress, and do not be afraid to talk to somebody, because talking it out rather than keeping it in and then erupting like a volcano is not the way to go, because I've experienced that and I hate blowing up on people. So if you just talk it out or even write it out. Speaking of managing stress, I guess we'll just talk about that and kind of go into that. Take care of yourself. When in doubt, write it out like I just said. If you have a journal or even just a piece of paper, write it out, write what you're feeling, and then kind of read it back, reflect on it. You'll be all good.
I will say physical activity is so great when you're stressed. A walk, a run, that helps. If I didn't run like every day, I don't even know how. I'd probably be like way more stressed. It just relieves so much stress, and you just feel a lot better. And I feel a little bit more calm. Like I've realized even over the last couple of years it just has been a lot better with physical activity.
Yeah,
so I recommend that.
I wish I was more physically active. But in place of that, we kind of mentioned this in prior episodes or even last episode, I can't remember. If you're not like the one to do physical activity, do your mental activity, whether it's mindfulness, meditation. If you want to do yoga, that can be a combination of both. Find what works for you, because there's not going to be a one size fits all, but there's something out there for you to manage your stress. So just look.
Yeah.
It's out there somewhere. But one thing I read here is let go perfectionism.
Ooh.
I think that is
another one that hits.
It's so key, because it's one of those things where we talked about control. We just mentioned it recently, is let go of what you can't control. And that kind of speaks to like let go of perfectionism. And they kind of talk to the students of this article, which is Cornell. But they say, some students have extremely high standards for themselves, but no one hits it out of the ballpark every time. Try to be as understanding with yourself as you would be with a friend.
I just pointed to myself because I have really high expectations for myself.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's just who I am. And I am really trying to learn. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not have everything covered all the time. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. How do I want to word this? I mean, we all talked about like my birthday and like I just turned 30, but it's the mentality shift that I've been kind of experiencing where like there's people out there who aren't perfect, and that's completely okay. Like it's okay. You're your own person, and you not conforming to societal norms or not being perfect, that's okay. And you shouldn't add that onto the stress of whatever you're growing on, whatever's going on personally. So just be you. It's easier said than done, I recognize, but be you. It's okay to not be okay. You don't have to be in control of everything, but control what you can control is what I have to say to that. Natalia, are we ready to introduce our final guest of the semester?
We are.
Tell us who it is.
We have Sam Paratore.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Pioneer Careers Podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's
so
fun.
excited that you're here.
We're happy to have you. I mean, I see you like every day usually because you're a
pretty
tutor
much,
on the
just
fifth
about,
floor.
yeah.
But for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm Sam Paratore. I am a senior SAEM major here. And I've, like I said, I do tutoring. I've done most especially with the Campus Activities Board. I'm the Vice President of Marketing. And I've done a little bit of UView things on the side of things like that, doing some sports reporting. I'm very, very active around here. You tend to see me a lot.
Maybe just a little bit. I do see you a lot. Well, not only just on the fifth floor, but I remember we had our run in at the beginning of the semester for the student Pioneer Leads presentations that they did. All the student leaders, they participated in different presentations from staff on campus, and Sam was a lucky person to be part of mine. So that's where we met in August.
Yeah.
So ever since then, it was like only 3 people in my presentation, but it was like him, Emily Vath, and
I think it was Jenna Filipski.
Jenna, yeah. I was like Jenna, but I don't remember her last name. But yeah, so
and then I walk by your office every day. So how
you really do.
Hi?
But we're so happy to have you on this episode of Finals Week, Managing Stress. It's an important topic because I know a lot of students, they might have difficulty managing stress. Finals week, some may be graduating. Nick again, and so. If there's anything you have about stress, have you experienced stress during finals week? How has that been for you in the past, and maybe compare it to now, how maybe unstressful or stressful it is still?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been kind of talking about it with my roommates and things like that. This has seemingly been one of the more stressful finals weeks that I've had, mainly because I've just had a little bit more than I usually would have to for the senior year and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was just kind of talking about it on Monday in my meeting with my Campus Activities Board advisor, of how there were so many different things on my mind in different aspects, whether it was CAV related, finals related, and it was just like I was like trying to just pick out all the ones that were CAV related that we actually had to talk about, because there's just you can get very overwhelming with how many different things, projects, whether they're group projects or individual exams, whenever you have to take those, there's a lot of different things that can just kind of pile on, and if you don't have any method of like coping with that, it can get very difficult for you to actually be able to execute those things once you actually have to down the line.
And not even just executing it and finishing it, but also doing well at the exams and doing good, like
the quality.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think as a freshman standpoint, what would you recommend to a freshman first semester of finals that they have to deal with?
Definitely, if you're going into that finals week that you have a lot of exams for, you definitely just have to be able to take that one step at a time. Yeah. It can get very difficult to think about that way, because you're just going to be thinking, oh, I have this coming up too, and I've got this. You got to be able to take that one step at a time, focus on what you need to, however you want to prioritize it, whether it's what's coming up first, whether it's the one that you're struggling with the most. You have to be able to find that way to take it a step at a time, find a little bit of a gap for yourself too, because you can't overwork yourself too much, because then everything else just kind of falls right off very quickly after that. So you have to make sure that you can compartmentalize it, and be able to put that focus in, take those little breaks for yourself. However you do that, whether it's watching comfort shows or being with your friends, there's different ways to go about that. But that's definitely, I think the biggest key would be trying to focus in on taking it a lot slower than it might, so you don't get that, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I got to do this, and now you're panicking because it's getting closer to, and all that other kind of thing.
Yeah, like during my finals week when I was in undergrad, I think I was, what was it? It was like my freshman year and my sophomore year. I had 5 finals, and I'm like, what am I doing? And why do I have 5 finals? But I always made a to-do list, or I was counting down. I was like, oh, okay, I did 1. Now I have 4 left. and like just like being excited to do that. So that may be something for freshmen, like just count it down, make a to-do list if you need to, like study for this one or have like specific time slots when you're studying or whatnot.
I was gonna say I make to-do lists every day, and they help a lot with just that helps keep my stress down a little bit.
Yeah. And I would say during this time, especially around the holidays and the weather, we talked about this earlier, it's a time when people's, just in general, like their depression and anxiety can increase a little bit. So having that on top of the stress of finals week for freshmen who may have not experienced it before, or even a senior like yourself, you may be just thinking, I'm a senior, why do I have so much going on? It should be the best time of my life and it should just be easy going.
Yeah.
So for people who may be feeling overwhelmed like that, or I guess on top of the stress of the season, the holidays and the anxieties of that, do you have any extra tips for those people who may, it's not everybody, but for those people specifically, and if you yourself may have experienced that, do you have any words to share with people or any advice to share on those extra stressors, I should say, those external stressors?
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think it kind of goes back to that similar vein that I was talking about with assignments and things. With when you're trying to, a lot of those, it just continues to pile on into that overwhelming kind of feeling, because then not only do you have all the assignment related things that you have, but whatever other external stressors you have about the season, whether it's like that depression, anxiety kind of aspect to it, whether it's other issues, it can just kind of add in. And if you don't have those methods that help you to be able to kind of just take that bit of a step back, relax, and try to almost like a bit of a reset sort of deal, I think that's kind of the biggest thing, to try to find those little methods, whether they be, watching funny little YouTube videos, whether they're spending time with your friends, roommates, friends, however you want to do that, just trying to pick each of those little moments and put them throughout your day. Don't just kind of power through the entire day and then, okay, maybe at the end I can do this kind of thing. You have to find
I'm gonna
those.
reward myself.
Exactly, which is a good thing to do, but you have to also be able to put in those little moments throughout your day, so you're not just go 100% and then use it as a reward.
And then at the end, you're like, what did I just study? And then you just wasted the whole day.
Yeah,
because you're like on information overload.
Yeah, because that's another thing too. Because if you are just trying to power through everything, you're not going to retain almost any of it, I wouldn't think.
No.
It's hard enough in this day and age to retain what you're doing, even when you're attempting to, let alone when you have, all these other things on your mind and you're trying to, it can be hard to compartmentalize that focus on, I'm going to look at this textbook and figure out this information. And then, once you're done with that, then you have all these other things you have to do. And then, it's just it's very easy to just kind of fall that by the wayside after that. So it's hard to find that retention, which is important when it comes to this season, all the finals, whatever, depending on how those exams are, because you're also having to then bring back, depending on how your exam works, you're trying to then bring back information that you learned very at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And then that's a whole other kind of animal to try to tackle as well.
So you're a senior. You've seen freshman, sophomore, junior. Like, you've been through all of these years. What is one kind of theme during finals week that you've noticed is like kind of the same every year, no matter what year you are?
Chaos is probably one. People always talk about that. You have the week of Thanksgiving, and then you come back, and then you just on go for those 3 weeks. And no matter what year it's been, even though I've mentioned earlier that this one has been a little bit more just because there's more going on, but you've always got that, like, that sense of, okay, so now I got to really go for these 3 weeks, and it can become a lot. I've kind of noticed that that's been pretty much each year. The only year that it didn't was that first year, because I came in as you did with that COVID year. Yeah. So we did not come back from that Thanksgiving to Christmas. We were just, the rest of that whole thing was online. So to see that difference from year to year, also, of like being able to actually, to be back here for those 3 weeks and just see everything that's going on, because you get there's a lot of different events that also happen. When you talk about the extracurricular organizations and things, with my involvement in CAB, we also were trying to put together that like month of events that we usually would have spread out amongst all those weeks. We're trying to still get them all in when we can, for the 3 weeks that we are here, you know, and trying to get all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that chaos comes from that kind of thing too, because now I'm on top of exams that I have to focus on and all those other things. I'm also on that cab side of things. I'm trying to figure out and hope that December things work out. And then we're also in this kind of time, we're talking about January and February events around this time, and spring training, which is as one of the 3 leadership members, is one of the things that we lead. So I'm trying to get all that kind of stuff and all that information in to make sure that we can have a good 2 training days before we come back. So it all just kind of sums up into whether it's struggle or it's fun, just chaos.
It's all about perspective too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it probably doesn't help that professors like to cram everything right after Thanksgiving into those 2 final weeks of classes, and then you have finals week. So that probably doesn't add to that, or it doesn't even help.
And it's been different each time for me. So with the sports arts and entertainment management world, a lot of the professors will sometimes have all the tests and projects. A lot of it tends to be project based.
Yeah.
But you're doing it before finals week. So whenever the actual finals week hits, most of the time where everyone else is like on go and getting stressed, and I'm just kind of here like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
And this year has kind of been no different to start, because this week I think was the biggest one for me, because I had a project that I was a little bit more stressed about that was due on Monday. And then, you know, once I got through that, and then I had one like final that was online take throughout the week.
We love online finals.
Exactly. It's great. And I took that yesterday. So being able to get those 2 out of the way, I just came from my presentation that we were kind of talking about a little bit beforehand. Those were like the 3 big ones that I was like, okay, once I get through this, then it gets a little bit easier, because now I only have like a couple small like little assignments, and then going into for my legal aspects classes, now my biggest one, our mock trial, is next Tuesday in finals week. I think the only thing I have to do in person during that finals week. So now
that's nice.
So now that the other like bigger kind of projects and assignments are kind of off there, you know, I can lay in my focus to that to make sure that goes well, and then just try to fit in those other smaller assignments like the reflections and different things that you do for classes, kind of fit those in throughout the rest of this week, while still trying to put that main focus now on that big mock trial project.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering, like we talk about finals week, right?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm thinking finals week is always like chalked up to be this like big stressor in people's lives. And I don't know if it's the college students who do it to themselves, professors, the universities. Oh, finals week. You got to do your finals. You got to pass. You got to pass them. But I'm kind of wondering, like, is there a difference between fall semester finals and spring semester finals? And you can answer this too if you want. Can you tell a difference in the stress? Can you tell a difference in the mentality of the professors, or just like anything in the differences between like fall semester finals and spring semester finals?
There definitely is a bit of a difference. I think depends on the year based off of how much you kind of feel it. I don't know if you feel similar. But I think because when you get to the spring semester, there's that air of like, okay, it's the end of the year now. So it's a little bit different than, you know, the end of that fall semester. It's just like, okay, halfway through the year, you know, and there's still things that people have to get through. And then once you get to that end of that spring semester, then you're done.
It's like more of a relief. So, you're like, oh, I'm done.
There's more there's more of that relief once you get there. You're like, you know, because when you look at it, especially with the way our break works, being a little bit shorter, you're like, okay, so I get a couple weeks to reprieve, and then I still have to be like back on it.
Yeah.
You know, when you go into that spring semester and ending all that off, you're like, okay, so now it's done, and then for the next 3 months, well, in our case, not as much, but so now you have that longer time where it's there's that more of a finality to it, and there's also just so much more. There's so many more other things that go on around the university that that really bring that finality feel, because you have all those different events. Like CAB does their biggest thing. You have the Outstanding Student Awards. You have all those kind of things that are like, okay,
commencement.
Commencement, exactly.
Yeah.
That's going to be the end of the year kind of deal.
And that'll be big for you guys because both of you are seniors. So
yeah.
I'm excited for you.
I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. Just the whole entire atmosphere. And since we got, well, I don't know how your high school did it, but we didn't let anybody come except for our parents to like a little graduation. So it's going to be nice having like all my family there because COVID messed it up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We graduated. I always like to joke about this. I graduated 3 times from high school, it seemed, because they added in the way we have 2 buildings as a part of our district, and they were all connected by one street. So they did a parade down that street from our high school to the elementary school building. And then we did the recording where your parents were giving you like the diploma, frame or the thing, whatever. So there was that aspect to it. And then once there was that little bit of reprieve in the summer aspect in that year, we all came back and did it in the parking lot, where they gave us they put up the little stage. They gave us our moment to stand in front of everybody for a little bit and get your applause, and then on your way down from that stage they gave you the DVD. So that was the third one.
Wow.
That I kind of that's how I usually put it, but it was kind of fun to just be like, I graduated 3 times from high school.
Mine was twice because we did a virtual graduation on the actual day. It was June 5th. And then a couple weeks later, they invited your parents to go to the stadium.
Yeah.
And then you were social distance with the masks.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I can't really complain. I know some people didn't get anything.
Yeah.
So I can't complain at all.
So with the topic of it being COVID, I kind of asked our previous guest this, and feel free to say no if you don't want to answer it, or only if you feel comfortable. But I know we kind of talked about COVID and how that affected you. We talked to Joey Bova, who he spoke to his mental health during COVID. But I'm kind of wondering, how was the COVID years for you? Like, you graduated high school, you did it 3 times, you said, and then you came into a university all new. You had no idea what to expect, and then just everything changing and stuff like that. How did that kind of affect your mental health, even stress? We can talk about stress. Mm-hmm. How you manage your stress during that time, your mental health. How was that experience for you?
And it definitely, throughout those years, it definitely took a bit of a hit on the mental health side, because there's, you're, secluded away, not really being able to do anything. And especially with the, you're trying to, at the very start, you're then trying to switch gears to trying to do school online, and however the heck you're supposed to do that for the last couple of weeks of high school. It got me out of an AP physics final, though, and I probably would not have done well on, so at least there's that. And then jumping into coming into Point Park, which was just a completely different, new thing. It's a new experience, but also now you're trying to, not only are you trying to get that, I'm in a brand new, university, brand new kind of thing, new environment. That's what I was looking for. But also now you have the COVID things you have to try to deal with. And I don't think, besides going to any of the in-person classes that I had, I don't think I left my little Lawrence try room, because I had a roommate because we had the 3.
Yeah.
I don't think I really left much that very first semester. Even though I was still I had got to become a part of CAB early on too, so that was one of those things the one thing that I found on.
And that probably helped a lot.
Yeah. That was another thing I was going to get to, because once I able to found that little group, was able big help to that kind of thing. And then spring semester I opened up a lot more. I was going out, finding new friends and all that kind of thing, which was helpful too. And that kind of builds even more based off of my involvement in CAB from year to year. My sophomore year I think was the biggest jump for me. Once I got back from that sophomore year, I was being able to be in person then with all those people. I had a lot of good friends. I made a lot of good friends on that sophomore year board. That I was a general board member, but that exec board I had a lot of friends with. So I was around all the time, and I was doing event after event. It's probably not the best statistic to me, but I remember somewhere along, I think I was at least a part of, if I had staffed for half of it or done some kind of help with, 96% of our events that my sophomore year, which we did over 100 that year, I had staffed in some capacity.
Yeah.
Which, for me it was oh, that's cool. You also might think, maybe a little bit too much, and trying to find that balance can be difficult. But that was like that first big jump to be able to, I've found my group of people that isn't just, my like smaller group of friends or all things like that. And that really kind of helps that boost moving into the years after junior year and now here. Finding that community of people is always a big help.
Especially during that time, because I'm sure you probably could attest to this as well. And I think we talked about this too. Just the feeling of, isolation, having to stay in your room during those first few COVID years or even those months, being alone, having to wear masks or just doing class in your bedroom.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you overcame that and you found your group of people. You found CAB, which is great. And it's interesting to hear the different perspectives of students that they had during the COVID years. And I don't think that's highlighted enough, is the students who are graduating now who had started during the COVID years, and they aren't asked these questions, and they aren't, I guess I don't want to say feel appreciated or they don't feel heard, but I feel like it's important for their voice to be heard and for them to share these experiences and just to let people know, hey, this was my experience during this time and this is how I came out on top of it. And you both did that. So I am proud of both of you.
Thank you.
You too, Nick, just let you know. I'm proud of everybody who has really, just found their way during this difficult time in COVID, and
especially as a freshman year, because you're going into a new environment with no friends. Like that was tough.
Yeah.
Because they're telling you can't talk to anyone face to face and you have to wear a mask. It's just like,
it was that added layer for you guys.
It was.
That I don't think anyone really recognizes. And I kind of equate it to an old, I don't say old person, get canceled, but like myself, like I'm 30, whatever, but maybe like an older person or I wouldn't even say older person, the incoming students, and you're kind of sharing your experience because they maybe have not experienced that, because they're like, oh, well, what was I was still in high school, I was still a baby or whatever.
Yeah.
And you guys lived through that transition from graduating high school virtually, coming to a new experience in university that's huge, and like you're on your own at 17, 18 years old and trying to figure this out on your own. And I don't think the students now realize that, but you guys sharing this really puts that perspective, and they're like, oh wow, the seniors graduating, maybe we should appreciate them more, which in my mind I think we should. Natalia, do you have anything else for our dear friend Nick? Oh my gosh,
Nick's over there,
take that out. Natalie, do you have anything else for our dear friend Sam?
We covered everything. We had a great conversation.
We did. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you to our dear friend, not Nick, but Sam, for coming on and talking about finals and stressors and all of that.
Yeah, and thank you to, shedding light about your experience during the COVID years. I know that was a tough transition. Can't speak from experience, can only speak from a staff member's experience and perspective, but thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable and comfortable and, just opening up with us, talking about stress, talking about, your mental health during the COVID years. But before we kind of get into, the last segment of the semester, our last outro, if you have any questions or you have any suggestions for, the next semester, moving on, have any topics that you want to see, be sure to email careerdev@pointpark.edu. That is careerdev@pointpark.edu. And where can you find us? You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Are we ready to kind of
have our last outro
and wrap this up? Well, as always, well, actually not always, I faked Nick out because this isn't an article and we're not going to do an article for our outro. What we're going to do is show appreciation to our dear friend Nick. So if Nick could please come over here, and if you want, you don't have to bring a mic or anything. You can just stand in between us if you want.
Hello.
If you want to come over here, in between us, however that works, and we can tilt.
Oh, sure, yes.
We could tilt the mics, however whatever works. But we just want to say thank you because
thank you so much for everything.
You've done so much, and I don't know if this podcast would be as supportive or, I guess, successful without you. And as a token of our appreciation, we wanted to give you this.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Nick, for everything.
Surprise!
Yay! Guys, I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. It's been a great experience just to try something new. Spend every 2 weeks with you guys, get to know you guys even more, and it's just been a really great time. Thank you guys so much.
We're gonna miss you.
We're gonna miss
I'm gonna
you a
miss
lot.
you guys. It's a weird time. It's a very reflective time, just thinking back on everything and just
Setting those new goals, right?
that's right.
Set those goals. That was your episode.
That was that.
That
Yeah,
was your
setting goals, and looking to the future.
And it all comes full circle.
It does.
Full circle.
Do you have anything to share? Do you have any leads for graduation? Careers, or is that something stressful?
Well, I'm gonna keep that under lock and key for now. But
Lock and
there's
key.
a couple leads. We have a couple leads going on, but it's gotta keep the 2 tracks of doing your finals, looking for jobs, and also trying to spend as much time with my friends as I can.
Yeah.
It's the balance. It's the balance, but I'm trying to soak it all in.
Soak it
Here on
all
the
up.
Pioneer Careers podcast.
Soak it all up.
I know.
Yeah.
This podcast has been an amazing experience for me. I'm sure it has for you. And you have really made this podcast something into more than what I or probably you either have thought it would be. Just because of your skills and your production skills and just, I don't know. I feel like we're a great team, and I don't want you to leave.
It's fun.
It's sad. It's sad, isn't it?
It's sad.
It
It's
is
the last
sad.
episode.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Mr. Nick.
Aw, our dear friend Nick.
Our dear. This is our dear
This is
friend
our dear
Nick.
friend Nick.
Sam.
Not
I'm
Sam.
Not Sam. I'm Nick.
But yeah, thank you,
Thank
not
you.
Sam, Nick, for everything you've done for us.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad to help.
Thank you for the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park for letting us record our podcast here this semester.
The whole semester.
The
It's
whole
been
semester.
an amazing experience, as we mentioned earlier. We didn't realize how successful this would be, how many people would want to be on the podcast, how many topics we covered. And it's really brought you, I think, even though you are kind of extroverted as you,
No, it still brought me out of my shell.
your comfort zone, my comfort zone. And yeah, but this is the
That's
last
all.
episode. That's all she wrote. So I guess
we will have to see you next year.